Well, 2025 suddenly has been a pretty surprising year for video games, hasn't it? Who could have expected that the breakout genre of the entire year would be the artfully named Friend Slop, with the game that led the charge, Peak, being essentially a game jam entry that not even its developers expected to get popular. It's definitely not sunk in yet that Silksong, you know, the game we all used to joke about being in development hell that was never going to get released, not just actually came out, but was better than we expected. Nobody foresaw a bunch of blasts from the past suddenly becoming relevant again. Kart races are back, Deltarune emerged from the darkness to double in size, plus Telltale-style games have returned from the dead, and they're actually good now. And, most surprising of all, one thing that absolutely nobody saw coming was the fact that the highest profile game of the year ended up being a JRPG of all things, and one that eschewed the typical aesthetic trappings of the genre to paint a picture of a mythical, eerie fantasy world known only as France. It's been a hell of a year, but if there's one thing that unites all of these stories, it's that 2025 has been the year where the scrappy underdogs of the games industry have been in their absolute ascendancy, where the big companies are eating themselves from the inside out with bloated games, endless delays and constant layoffs. Indie devs and smaller studios have been releasing hit after hit, and I genuinely don't think that indie games in general have been as high profile or as consistently high quality in a very long time. There have been so many great titles released this year in a whole bunch of different genres, so much so that it's been really hard to keep up. And while that's mostly a good thing, it's also meant that a bunch of awesome creative titles that in any other year would be luxuriating in the spotlight right now haven't been given their time to shine. And that is where I come in. Every single year, I take it upon myself to trawl through the giant pile of underappreciated niche hidden gems of the last 12 months to assemble a big list of the 20 games from this year in no particular order that you should have played, but that you probably didn't. All with the aim of boosting the profile of some of the year's best games that didn't get the attention they deserved, highlighting some cool titles in smaller genres that don't get much coverage, and showing you some plain old weird stuff that I just feel the need to share. As always, this list is going to focus on creative, interesting, and underappreciated games, not the most popular ones that you've already heard of. So, I'm telling you now, yes, I also thought Hades 2 and Kingdom Come 2 and Ark Raiders 1 were good, but you probably already heard and/or played them, so they don't belong on the list, do they? And to give you some extra help, because I really do think you should play these games, I'll also tell you the cheapest price I could find for them in the obligatory winter sales, plus whether they have a demo or not, because that's another surprising thing from this year. Demos are back. Where did they go originally? No idea, but it's good to see them return. Anyway, let's get this list started with the very first game, Absalom, which is an old school beat 'em up that takes some classic retro combat mechanics and jumps them forward like 30 years into the future. Now, I could waste a bunch of time telling you that Absalom is absolute dynamite to play, but quite frankly, look at this shit, you can already tell it's super satisfying. What you might not guess though, is that all of this footage so far is from just the first of 4 equally big worlds. Absalom has an absurd amount of lovingly crafted levels and an insane spaghetti network of branching paths connecting them all, each with their own bespoke combat encounters, evolving quests, and bosses. Truly, I do not know how they managed to make this game so big whilst also making it a roguelike and still keep it feeling so tight. Absalom has to be played to be believed, and you'll know that I was right about everything when you fight this blunderbuss-rocking undead dwarf king to a Mick Gordon-composed thrash metal track, all while playing as a magic wizard frog. It's glorious. In a similar throwback vein, next up we have Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, which can only be described as a first-party Game Boy Advance game yanked from an alternate timeline. The thing that the dev team have really nailed here in terms of evoking that classic Nintendo charm is how literally everything in the game always feeds back to the core mechanic of the yo-yo. Whether it's combat, or puzzle solving, or getting about by riding the damn thing around, Pipistrello never distracts from the brilliantly satisfying puzzle of how you're gonna ricochet and maneuver the thing around the screen, with each new Zelda-style ability adding another little wrinkle that keeps things fresh. Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo is a perfect mix of retro charm and modern smooth design, with some unexpectedly great writing and boss fights in there too. So why don't you walk the dog all the way around the world and 360 yourself into one of the breakaway games of the year. Those were all yo-yo words, in case that wasn't clear. And following that, we've got Demon School, which is what happens 9 months after Into the Breach and Persona 2 get drunk and decide to make out. I don't know how I could possibly make that any more clear, but I'll give it a go, I guess. Demon School is a game of 2 halves, split between an easy breezy life sim game and an incredibly puzzly tactical battle mode, where you've got to optimize your moves and combine abilities together in order to eliminate a bunch of demons in as short a time as possible. But that doesn't really describe its charm. Demon School's appeal comes entirely down to how much you get its incredibly earnest vibe. The characters are all cringy misfit weirdos, it's a love letter to 1990s anime and horror, and it does not take itself seriously at all. But that light, irreverent tone and its rock-hard tactics balance each other out really well, and ensure that you can never get burned out on either half. Demon School is great, and also the soundtrack slaps, as you can hear right now. In a similar strategic vein, we've got The Alters, a game all about getting to know yourself, namely by making a bunch of clones yanked from hypothetical realities and putting them to work mining toxic metals on a lethal alien planet so that you don't die. The Alters is a brutal experience in more ways than one, with the game's time management gameplay pushing your skills and the sanity of your clones to their absolute limits. But where it really shines is in the personalities and interactions you get with all of Jan's alternate selves. They aren't just faceless robots like in most management games, each one has their own personality, like the traumatized miner, or the amoral scientist, or the insufferably smug wife guy gardener, and navigating all their quirks and relationships is just as much fun and just as much of a challenge as trying to survive. I've barely covered all the twists and turns of the story because that's something you should really experience for yourself. Please do give it a go. Okay, screw Counter-Strike, forget League of Legends, and chess, more like for chumps. The esport of the future is here, and it is Queue Up, a game that uses high-tech, venture capital-funded super science to simulate a perfectly fair coin flip, meaning that only the absolute most skilled players are able to triumph. Except, of course, when something completely impossible, like you getting 3 heads in a row happens, and the head developer emails you to apologise for the quantum supercomputer that runs the game breaking. Queue Up is, as you may have guessed, a work of satire, and it's written by the same people who made Universal Paperclips, and it pokes fun at everything from Web 3.0 in shitification to bizarrely overcomplicated video game progression systems. But it graduates from being an empty mockery by hiding a genuinely fantastic incremental game within its funny writing and seemingly random gameplay. Queue Up is one of my biggest surprises of the year, and there's, a roughly 50% chance that it will be for you too. Next up, we have Of the Devil, one of the most stylish and slick visual novels that I have ever played, taking place in a richly realised cyberpunk surveillance state where you have to play as a defense attorney getting people acquitted of crimes that the cops would rather you didn't. If that sounds like an Ace Attorney game, by the way, you'd be dead on the money. It's basically that, but better polished and with more lesbians. Of the Devil is incredibly funny, and its poker-inspired investigation and evidence-proving mechanic, where you get rewarded for reading all the supplemental materials and for pushing your rhetorical luck, is such a great narrative conceit that really ties the whole thing together. Also, you've got no excuse not to play it, because the first demo episode is basically a standalone 90-minute experience, and it's completely free. The other 2 entries of a planned 5 are around 10 to 15 hours each, and if you can believe it, they're both even better. If you don't give it a read, you will break my heart. If your first thought upon hearing the idea Space Invaders deck-building roguelike was that it's the silliest idea in the world, then you would be 100% right. But that fact is also the secret ingredient of why Star Vaders works so damn well. It takes 2 well-established concepts and mashes them together by cranking everything up to 11. You will be regularly clearing entire screens of enemies in a single turn, you don't get money just for playing, your cash comes from how high you can stack your combo meter, and every boss in the game is some sort of screen-filling, high-concept wackiness like this one that makes you play chess, or this one that's just a bunch of fucking bees. Star Vaders is a game that writes a delicate balance between depth and chaos by leaving no mechanical stone unturned and never ever saying no to whatever overpowered build idea you come up with. And that is why it stands out in an incredibly busy marketplace. If you thought things were getting Fireball less silly, then you'd be wrong, because Magic Missile, the next game, is Mage Arena. Freeze! A multiplayer wizard dueling simulator where you have to shout the name of your spells into the mic in order to Dark Blast cast them. The whole game is dead simple, but it is great fun running around blowing up your friends and playing with all the weird and wacky spells and items, most of which are kind of useless, but serve only to make an already dumb silly game even dumber and even sillier. Of course, this does come with the caveat that if you're on Team Filthy Sorcerer, then I, a proud warlock until the day I die, want nothing to do with you. Hole! Oh yeah, by the way, there is a Portal-style teleport mechanic because, of course there is. The game is dead cheap, so it shouldn't be too hard for you to rustle up a few wizard friends for some magical madness. Fireball! For some more lo-fi goodness, we've got Abiotic Factor. And I want you to pay very close attention when I say this, Abiotic Factor is the single greatest survival game ever made outside of Minecraft. And that might sound like hyperbole, but in my opinion, it is 100% true. The only reason why this game is not in the top 3 is because it's too popular. Rather than just dumping you in the woods somewhere, Abiotic Factor sees you trying to survive in the ruins of a Black Mesa-style science facility, hopping through portals to weird, monster-filled worlds, and improvising weapons and tools out of a mix of office supplies, looted diagnostic equipment, and bits of aliens. with the premise serving as the backdrop for an incredibly intricately designed world, some really creative encounters, and an emphasis on clever solutions and thinking like a scientist over run-and-gun gameplay. Abiotic Factor is the Half-Life spin-off we never got, and after playing it, you'll never want to go back to mining for iron ore for the millionth time ever again. You can even get an overpowered crowbar. Play it. For a game that is about getting dumped in the woods, I can recommend Baby Steps, a game that seems upon first glance to be a gimmicky gag title about playing as a guy named Nate who is so incompetent that you've got to move his legs for him, but is actually so much more. See, Baby Steps isn't just an amusing premise with some really great improvised comedy cutscenes, it's also a genuinely fantastically designed and really challenging platformer that's way bigger and more nuanced than you'd expect. The narrative goes in some actually quite heartfelt directions that I don't want to spoil, and the awkward controls and brick wall difficulty are used to tell a story about perseverance in the face of failure, the driving nature of ego, and the ways in which outside pressure defines who we are much more than we like. Also, it's got a bunch of donkey men with their dicks out, so there's something for everyone. After that, we have Skin Deep, a comedy immersive sim where the most reliable weapon in the entire game is throwing a conveniently placed box of pepper at an enemy, jumping on his back in the confusion, and ramming him into enough furniture that you can knock him out, pull off his head, and flush it down the toilet. Yeah, the entire game is built around slapstick improvisation, and in doing this, Skin Deep actually fixes a problem that a lot of similar stealth games have. By making you really weak, and by making enemies really tough, Skin Deep forces you to get creative, rather than just shooting everyone in the head and calling it a day. Every single level is built around a different fun gimmick, like a library that has weaponized book security checkpoints you can use to kill enemies, or a launcher map with lots of slippy slope that you need to fight back with. And so no two takedowns or stealth gauntlets feel the same. It's great! Also, your mission is to rescue a bunch of space cats, just in case that's gonna, seal the deal for you. For an entirely different first-person shooter, we have Mortar, which, if you are remotely familiar with modding, has a very distinct look, and that's because it's a game that's running on a heavily modified version of the Doom engine. Yes, the one from 1993. Mortar's greatest strength lies in its art design and its variety. Every single one of its dimension-hopping levels has a pretty much unique cast of enemies, and is set in an absurdly creative and gorgeous locale that all manage to tell a cool story with some very minimalist world building. Not only that, the game's got like 20-ish awesome boss fights and just as many weapons. Mortar is a testament to just what can be accomplished using elegant tools and a whole lot of imagination, and you would be very hard-pressed indeed to find a better shooter from this year. Next up, we've got Wonderstop. Now, I am one of those people that has an intense aversion to anything cozy. I am a stress-powered machine. I need to work and push myself and never slow down, because if I ever take a breath, then I'll stop. And if I stop, then what if I... Anyway, Wonderstop is a game created for people just like me. You play as a wounded swordswoman forced against her will to take a break, with the world of Wonderstop and its proprietor Morrow actively resisting your efforts to find a challenge. And that's because the game is a meditation on burnout and our relationship with our own vulnerability. If that seems like it's going to be a bummer, don't worry, because the game is written by the same guy who wrote the Stanley Parable, so it's super funny, endlessly incisive, and genuinely touching at times. If Wonderstop sounds like the most boring game ever, and it certainly did before I played it, then it was, in fact, made with you in mind. Another game about anxiety that is entirely different in tone is Consume Me. And you wouldn't expect an autobiographical game about eating disorders and compulsive behaviour to be very much fun, but goddamn if Consume Me isn't one of the most whimsical games of the entire year. Consume Me sees you living out Jenny's life day by day in the form of a whole bunch of short, snappy minigames that task you with balancing her limited time alongside the ever-increasing demands of her personal life and unhealthy obsession with food. The thing that Consume Me really shows off is the way that game mechanics and tactile interactions can be used to convey feelings and narratives so much better than boring old text and cutscenes ever could. And the game is constantly finding new ways to surprise you with clever mechanical metaphors, like this minigame about an awkward first kiss, or this one about trying to read without getting distracted. Consume Me is cute, it's creative, it's charming, and like Egbo, it will never be out of style. Oh, what's that? You want to play the new game? Yeah, it's streaming on Hebe, it's on Glump, it's literally on Jigjag. Oh wait, no, it's on Blippo Plus, a very strange, not quite game that baffles me that it even exists. Blippo Plus is a window into an alien planet's TV catalogue inspired by 1980s cable, with medical dramas starring clones, pop culture gossip of shows that don't exist, alien cooking recipes, painfully uncool teenage programming, an extraterrestrial version of CFAX, something that I am too young to really understand what it was, and of course, the beloved movie franchise, The Fighting Trillions. There's not much in the way of game mechanics in Blippo, you just sort of sit back and watch as the storylines gradually unfold with each new package of shows, but what you're really there for is the absolute high-concept madness that the insane theatre kid weirdos that made this thing created, and it is an endlessly compelling watch with a surprisingly well-realised and coherent setting.
You live to challenge the Quizard another day. Onward to your next adventure.
Ooh isn't just the game with the most fun title to say of the year, Ooh is also one of the best puzzle games of the year, and one that thrives on its total design elegance. The only mechanic in the entire game is to put down a bomb and then blow it up. That's it. And every puzzle in the game uses that dynamic in progressively more interesting and nuanced ways that are constantly blowing your mind with new emergent bits of complexity that let you do things and think in ways that you never would have considered before. Seriously, I'm trying not to spoil things here, but using your bomb as a rocket booster is really only the beginning. Ooh is only a few hours long, but there is not a gram of fat on the whole thing. Every single puzzle teaches you something new, and there's no crafting systems or perfunctory combat mechanics. It's pure puzzle design goodness that you can beat in a single sitting. It's great. Metro Gravity is another puzzly game, but it's also a Metroidvania, which is all about, gravity. Crazy, right? The single greatest feat of Metro Gravity comes in the form of its level design, which takes the form of mind-bending labyrinths that you can walk on every side of, and that are at first really hard to get your head around. But that all eventually resolves into these really fun to navigate spaces that are totally different from any other Metroidvania you've ever played, and that only get wackier with all the physics-based powers you gradually gain access to, like grapples and gravity beams. And if that weren't enough, the game also has a pulse-pounding rhythm-based combat system that turns the boss fights, which are often a bit of a weakness in these kinds of games, into what are almost music video style dances of parries and dodges, which push your timing and your navigation skills to the absolute limit. And of course it doesn't hurt matters that the game is gorgeous as well. Okay, that is 17 games from 2025 that you should have played. And I know what you're thinking, didn't I promise 20 games? And yes, you would of course be right. But these 3 games coming up right now are a little tiny bit different. See, where the previous bunch were in no particular order, these ones are my top 3 creative, unique, and noteworthy titles from this year. But before we get to them, and to build a little bit of tension, we do have some very special Architect of Games 2025 Industry Awards to give out. So let's just rattle those out nice and quick, shall we? First up, Best Indie Game, and that obviously goes to Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Oh, well done guys. Best AAA Game, that, also goes to Expedition 33. Right, Game of the Year then is, okay, Clair Obscur. Best Actor is not even Jennifer English's Mael, it's just the game. Let's let's keep it moving, guys. Best RPG, Clair Obscur. Best multiplayer game, Clair Obscur. What? Best game from last year? Best game that's a sequel to Hollow Knight? The Oscar for Best Picture? The fucking Nobel Peace Prize? What the fuck is happening? Oh my god. Oh my god. Who put this here? The best name on my birth certificate is Clair Obscur. Okay, fuck it. No, I'm skipping to the end. Oh no. Best game made in France. Oh, okay. The winner of the best game made in France is Assassin's Creed Shadows. Oh my god, congratulations guys, well done to all the nominees, you love to see it. These sorts of award nights really bring the industry together, brings a tear to the eye. Anyway, with the actually important games out of the way, let's move on to 3 titles that weren't created by current or former members of the mainstream games or film industry, and are therefore entirely undeserving of your love or attention. In case that wasn't obvious, that was a joke, they're good. Let's get started with The Bazaar, a game that I have dumped over 250 hours into, and it still calls me back almost every day for another run. The Bazaar is one of the most deep, rewarding, and compulsive auto-battlers that I have ever played, and that's because more so than any other game of its kind, it leans into the idea that if everyone is overpowered, then everything is balanced. In The Bazaar, you play as one of currently 6 different heroes, each with their own totally distinct item pools, and are tasked with using those items you buy in shops or steal from monsters to build out a tableau of weapons, food, and friends. And at the end of each day, you and your items get pitted against the ghost of another player to see who comes out victorious. It's a deceptively simple setup, but within that framework is an incredible degree of depth, with every character having an endless variety of synergies and strategies that you need to toy with on the fly to maximize your power. Like Pig, who plays with speculative property investment, or Mac, who transforms alchemic reagents into powerful enchanted items, or Jules, who needs to make sure her food items are the right temperature, or Dooley, who can assemble a giant bug mech, which is a mix of Power Rangers and Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh! Because the Bazaar has so many items, passives, and enchantments, truly no 2 runs feel the same, and it's very hard to force a particular build, meaning you have to improvise around what you get by finding some entirely new way to break the game wide open and assemble some crazy combo every time, because that's the only way you're going to survive into the later days. Finally, seeing between the lines and figuring out an interaction you've never considered before feels amazing, and The Bazaar is the only game of its kind that I feel truly meets that potential. And, even better, the devs have finally sorted out the game's monetization after like a year of it constantly changing price, so you can now buy it guilt-free, or try the new demo, which will explain how the game works better than I ever could. Get on it! Second of our top 3 is a little game that turns out to be much bigger than you ever could have originally thought, and it goes by the name of Blueprints, which, given that most of the game is focused around a blueprint, is a pun that it took me about 30 hours to realise existed, which really sums up the game as a whole. I'll be upfront here, Blueprints is neither a perfect game, nor is it a game for everyone, but what it is absolutely uncompromising about its vision and utterly unique. For those not in the know, the game is all about assembling randomly drawn room tiles to build out the layout of the weird mansion that you've inherited, with each room having its own secrets and puzzles and hidden interactions, which you'll need to uncover and master if you want to reach room 46 at the very top of the house, which, rather than being the end of the game, is really only the beginning of an absurdly deep rabbit hole that will reveal more hidden layers and secret interactions than you ever thought possible. Blueprints is a game that absolutely does not hold your hand, and far from being centered around any one puzzle type, it has some totally out of left field and completely arcane conundrums that can and will totally blindside you if you've not been taking diligent notes or recording your entire playthrough like I did. But, nestled within the seeming hostility of the game is an experience like no other, one that genuinely rewards non-linear experimentation and lateral thinking, where every clue has a purpose, and where mastering the systems and hidden rules of the house will always pay off in the end. Blueprints is the ultimate challenge for seasoned puzzle heads, and is worth playing if only for one of the most satisfying eureka moments I've ever felt in any game ever, which was of course, opening a garage door. It's a much bigger deal than it seems. Blueprints is a truly fantastic game that I think some people wrongly assume would be a roguelike when it very much is not. Please give it a go, because when I played it, it literally took over my brain and entire life for like 2 weeks, and I mean that in only the most complimentary way possible. Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy Dan Gaming coming at you live with a hot new horror game, Look Outside. I mean, you know me, Dan Nation, I'm pretty impossible to scare, and let's just say I don't think some RPG maker game is gonna... Chat, I was wrong! Chat, I was wrong, chat! Look, dude, you just gotta use the jump attack. No, the jump attack, this guy's super weak to it. Trust me, he's so weak to jump attack, just do it. It's like objectively correct, my man. Like my whole chat is telling me, just use the jump attack. Yeah, there we go, jump attack. Oh no, flame belch! Oh god, cringe, dude, oh, you're so fucking bad at this, fuck! Oh my god, finally a decent party member. I can tell me and Philippe are going to the moon with this one, Dan Nation. Small channel update. Me and Philippe aren't going to be working together going ahead. He's taking a break from social media. Wood, guys? Am I right? Step on me, mommy. Everyone here in the apartment they're totally laughing, guys. I don't think it's getting picked up on the mic. It's gotta be a glitch or something. You know, Dan fans, I've been thinking, maybe this isn't the regular sort of Lovecraftian horror experience that slips into the easy trap of bleak nihilism, but it's actually about how even though the world seems to be falling apart and people are changing in chaotic ways, that we're still united by a common desire to form communities and to understand each other. And so long as we hold on to that, we'll always be, oh my god, Poof Beast 420, thanks for the gift sub, dude, nice! Okay guys, another channel update. I decided to look outside, and yeah, I know, the lamestream media keeps saying you're not supposed to do that, but look, the channel's been growing lately, I've been growing lately, Dan Army, I'm gonna be real with you, I think it's time I started branching out, and so, from now on, I think I'm only gonna be taking donations in the form of bone marrow, so look guys, no, trust me, it's not gonna hurt, so just hold still, and then once I've eaten you, we can both look outside together. I mean, it's so beautiful, guys. It's like 10 amaranths. And then when you've looked into the giant eye in the sky, finally you'll understand that we were all meant to be— oh shit! Poofbeast420 with another gift sub. Oh, appreciate it, dude. Well, there you have it. 20 games that you, yes you, should have played in the year 2025. We've had some excellent strategy games, some great puzzlers, some awesome retro throwbacks, and even some very heartfelt games indeed. There have been a bunch of great games this year, and so picking out this list has been really hard. The original shortlist was like 80 something games long, and I was making changes to this list right up until the last minute. So hopefully you found at least one game that you've either not heard of before but sounds cool, or that you've been convinced to give a go as a result of my idiotic rambling. If all you take away from this whole thing is an excuse to spend some money on the sales, then as far as I'm concerned, it's a job well done. Of course, if this list of 20 games isn't quite enough, then I might know where you can find another 5 games that you should have played, and it's by supporting the channel. Throw a few bucks my way, and in addition to the usual credits, early access, and behind the scenes videos, you'll also get an extra secret special reserve collection of games that I really wanted to put in this video but couldn't quite squeeze in. So if you'd like to see them, give me some cash. My supporters are the people who make this whole thing possible, and so I very much appreciate any hypothetical support that you might be willing to give. But if I'm honest, I appreciate the very real support of these fine people just a little bit more. And they are Agent Maxwell, Ali Wright, Andrew Lebrano, Auna94, Baroness Caroline, Bobby, Constantine Amend, Cosmix360, Daniel Metjes, Daniel Ursin, Dirk Jan Karembeld, Digleteer, Dis Ellie, Ecton, Edward Franklin Woods, Edwina the Space Bun, Eric Woolston, Eugene Bulkin, Fullabaxi, Furious Hulk, Gazkul, How, Heckett's Noah, I Support Trans Rights, Jacob Dylan Riddle, Jinkaloid, Justin Dent, Kevin Help Us, Conlove, Kangi, Leap Year Everyday, Luke Kokoran, Macewood54, Maxim Filipov, Mark Vallant, May Contain Fox-Like Substance, Mika Oi, Michael C., Mike Oxlong, Mike Ox Medium, Nate Graff, Oliver Marhofer, Patrick Romberg, Peter Tomasic, Reddedex, Regal Wedgex, Seslux, Silver Fulfi, Tyler Duncan, Timotheus Bexek, Whimsical Wisp, Zach Brandmeier, and Chow. Okay, see you next year. I'm exhausted, in case you can't tell from my voice. Time to pass out for a week. Bye!